The woman beside the Hampshire milestone had arranged 12 white stones into an arrow pointing north. Though the only carriage tracks in the road ran south, Alistair Pembroke, Duke of Wexford, saw the contradiction before he saw her face. She knelt in the mud, with one hand braced against the weathered stone, her cloak torn at the shoulder and her slippers dark with damp. The October light was failing. Bare hedges leaned over the road, and the fields beyond them had already gone grey. His carriage slowed after crossing a damaged tenant bridge, then stopped at his raised hand. "Your Grace," his coachman called. Alistair opened the door but did not step down at once. The woman had heard them. Her head turned sharply. She did not rise. She looked first at the horses, then at the coachman, the footman, the open carriage door, and finally at Alistair. The sequence was deliberate, not panic. Assessment. "Stay where you are," he said to his men. Then he descended alone. He stopped 12 feet from her. "I won't come closer unless you ask me to." Her fingers tightened around something brass in her palm. "How many people are in the carriage?" Her voice was hoarse but steady. "Myself, my coachman, one footman. Any women?" "Not yet. My aunt is at Wexford Abbey 6 miles north of here." Her gaze flicked toward the white stones. "North, yes. How long to reach the house?" "Less than half an hour at a careful pace." "Are there other houses on the road?" "2 farms, a toll cottage, and a vicarage before my gates." "Could I leave the carriage before your house?" "At any point." She studied him as though kindness were only another claim to be tested. Alistair respected that. "Do you know where you are?" he asked. "Hampshire." "How do you know?" "The milestone." "Do you know your name?" Her face changed, only slightly. The question had found a deeper wound than the cold. "No." "Do you know where you came from?" "No." "Do you know who left you?" She looked at the wheel tracks. "No." The answer came more softly. Alistair followed her gaze. The tracks were deep on the southern side of the road, then thinned where a carriage had accelerated away. No other recent carriage had passed, yet the arrow she had built pointed north with stubborn precision. "Why did you arrange the stones?" "So I wouldn't forget." "Forget what?" Her brow tightened. "That they turned north." He looked again at the tracks. "The carriage went south. After what?" "After they left me." Her breathing changed. A memory had brushed past and vanished before she could hold it. Alistair did not press. "Are you injured?" "My head hurts." "May I look?" "No." "Very well." He removed his greatcoat and laid it over the top of the milestone, within her reach, but not directly upon her. "You may use that if you choose." She did not move toward it. "Who are you?" "Alistair Pembroke." He paused. Titles could reassure one person and frighten another. "I am the Duke of Wexford." Her eyes narrowed. "There are no dukes named for Hampshire. My title is hereditary. My principal estate is here. And your aunt? Lady Agatha Pembroke. She keeps my household from becoming unbearable." A small line appeared between her brows. Not amusement exactly, but the memory of how amusement worked. "Will she be there when I arrive?" "Yes. I will send a rider ahead before you enter the carriage." "Why?" "So you know I am not inventing her after the fact." That answer reached her. She looked at the coat again, then at his carriage. "What if I refuse?" "You may remain here while I send for Lady Agatha and a physician. I will wait at a distance." "What if the physician is yours?" "Then you may refuse him too." The wind lifted the torn edge of her cloak. Where an embroidered monogram should have been, someone had cut away a neat square of cloth. Alistair saw no blood, only careful removal, not accident, not damage from the road. Her left hand shifted, and a chipped pocket sundial appeared between her fingers. The brass lid was scratched. He could make out an engraved line across it. "Find your own north." "Is that yours?" he asked. "I don't know, but you kept it." I woke holding it. As she moved, something metallic caught against the hem of her cloak, a curved brass fragment half the size of his thumb. Letters showed beneath the mud, but not enough to read. He did not touch it. "There is something caught in your hem." She looked down, freed the fragment, and held it beside the sundial. "Do you recognize it?" "No." "May I see it?" "Not yet." "Then keep it." She examined him again. "You don't ask many questions for a man who found a nameless woman beside his road." "I have many questions. That does not give me the right to demand answers before you are safe." Her throat moved. For the first time, fear left her face long enough for exhaustion to show beneath it. She reached for his greatcoat. "Send the rider." Alistair turned only his head. "Thomas, ride ahead. Tell Lady Agatha we are bringing a woman who requires privacy, warmth, and a female attendant. No household questions." The footman mounted the spare horse and departed north. The woman watched until he disappeared beyond the bend. "I was told not to enter the first carriage." Alistair looked back at her. "By whom?" "I don't know. Do you remember the voice?" "Mine." That answer chilled him more than the wind. She had warned herself. Perhaps aloud. Perhaps before memory failed. "Then this is not the first carriage," he said. "The one that left you was." Her gaze returned to the southern tracks. "That feels true." She tried to rise and nearly lost her balance. Alistair moved instinctively, then stopped before reaching her. "May I help?" After a moment, she nodded. He offered his forearm rather than taking hers. Her grip was light but controlled. She stood, swayed once, and recovered without leaning against him. Up close, he saw a faint bruise at her temple and mud dried along the edge of her hair. She carried herself like a woman accustomed to rooms where weakness was observed and remembered. "You may sit nearest the door," he said. "I will sit opposite. The door must remain unlocked." "It will." "And the window curtain open?" "Yes. If I ask to stop, we stop." She entered the carriage without his hand. Alistair followed, only after she had taken the seat beside the door. He left the opposite window cracked despite the cold. For the first mile, neither of them spoke. She watched the road with fierce concentration. At each turn, her fingers moved, once against the sundial, as though counting. When the carriage climbed, she lifted her head. When it descended, she closed her eyes. "What are you doing?" he asked, remembering without pictures. "By the road, by weight." The carriage crossed a narrow timbered passage where drainage water ran beneath planks. The hollow sound changed beneath the wheels. She opened her eyes at once. "That, you know it." "Not this one." Her breath quickened. Another crossing, wider. The boards were loose. "When?" "Before the bells." A church tower appeared through the bare trees. The first stroke of the hour carried across the fields. She stiffened. Alistair did not move. The second stroke sounded, then the third. Her hand closed around the sundial. "We heard 3 bells before midnight." "On the journey that brought you here?" "I think so." "Do you remember where?" "No." The 4th stroke rolled over the road. She turned toward the window. The horses had been changed too soon. Too soon for what? For the distance. The words came with sudden certainty. We had not traveled far enough. Alistair felt the shape of the mystery shift. This woman might not remember her own name, but she remembered what others had expected her not to notice. "How far should the horses have gone?" he asked. She looked at him, frightened now not by him, but by the knowledge rising inside her. "Farther than they did." The carriage rounded the next bend. Wexford Abbey appeared beyond the trees, its stone front lit by lamps. A rider waited at the gates. Beside him stood a tall woman in a dark mantle. Lady Agatha had come out to meet them herself. The woman by the door watched the house approach, then looked down at the arrow-shaped scratch she had made in the mud on her glove. "We passed this hour once before," she whispered, "and someone wanted me to believe we had gone farther than we had." Lady Agatha Pembroke did not wait for servants to bring the woman inside. She came down the Abbey steps herself, one gloved hand holding her mantle closed against the wind, and stopped beside the carriage before Alistair could open the door. "You are expected," she said, not warmly enough to feel intrusive and not coldly enough to frighten. The woman looked from Lady Agatha to Alistair. "You are his aunt." "I am. Do you live here?" Often enough to prevent him from mistaking silence for wisdom. Alistair glanced toward the coachman. "You see what I endure." The woman almost smiled. The expression vanished before it fully formed, but Lady Agatha noticed it. "There is a room prepared," she said. "A female attendant will remain nearby. No one will question you tonight unless you request it." "A physician?" the woman asked. "Dr. Elias Hale is on his way. He serves several families in the district, not only ours." "Will he examine me alone?" "No, I will remain, or my housekeeper will, as you prefer." The woman studied the entrance. Wexford Abbey rose around her in pale stone, its long windows reflecting carriage lamps. The size of it seemed to trouble her less than the open doors. Alistair stepped down first and moved aside. He did not offer his hand until she looked at him. "May I?" She nodded. This time her fingers closed around his forearm more firmly. Lady Agatha watched the careful distance between them and understood enough not to speak. Inside, the entrance hall glowed with firelight and polished oak. Servants stood discreetly beyond the central staircase, curious despite their lowered eyes. The woman noticed them immediately. Her shoulders stiffened. "Mrs. Fairmont," Lady Agatha said to the housekeeper. "No one is to discuss our guest below stairs. No visitor is to be admitted to her without my permission or hers." Mrs. Fairmont bowed. "Yes, my lady." "Hers," Lady Agatha repeated. "Not merely mine. I understand." The woman turned toward Lady Agatha. "Why would my permission matter in your house?" "Because you are not a prisoner in it." The answer seemed to reach someplace deep. A young maid approached carrying a tray of broth and hot water. She was perhaps 16, nervous under the attention of a duke, a duchess's aunt, and an unknown guest. Her right hand trembled. The bowl slid against the tray. Broth spilled over her fingers. She gasped and nearly dropped everything. Mrs. Fairmont stepped forward. "Clara," the maid's face went white. "I'm sorry, Ma'am. I'm so sorry." Before anyone else moved, the woman from the road caught the edge of the tray and steadied it. "Her hand is burned." "It's nothing, miss," Clara whispered. "It is not nothing." The woman looked toward Lady Agatha. "Cold water first. Not butter, not cloth until the heat is drawn." Lady Agatha nodded at once. "Take her to the scullery, Mrs." Fairmont guided the girl away. The woman watched until Clara disappeared. "You knew what to do," Alistair said. "Apparently. Does that feel familiar? The knowledge does. The memory does not." A strange grief passed over her face. She could protect a frightened maid, yet could not name the life that had taught her how. Lady Agatha touched her elbow lightly. "Come, Doctor. Hale will not keep you long." The examination took place in a small sitting room beside the guest chamber. Lady Agatha remained near the fire. Alistair waited outside with the door partly open, visible but not present. Dr. Hale was a broad, silver-haired man with a quiet manner and no interest in unnecessary drama. He asked permission before touching the bruise at her temple. He tested her sight, speech, balance, and memory. "Do you know the year?" he asked. 1818. "The season? Autumn? The county?" "Hampshire." "His Grace's name?" "Alistair Pembroke." "And your own?" Silence entered the room. "No." Dr. Hale did not look disappointed. "Do you remember your childhood?" "No." "A house?" "No." "A family face?" "No." "But you can estimate distance and direction?" "Yes." "You remembered medical care for a burn?" "Yes." "You recognized the difference between a road climbing and descending while riding in a carriage?" "Yes." Dr. Hale sat back. "Your reasoning is clear. Your practical memory appears intact. What is disrupted is personal memory, names, relationships, and events attached to your own life. Am I mad?" The question came without hesitation. Lady Agatha's eyes lifted. "Doctor," Hale answered with equal directness. "No." "Can you put that in writing?" He paused only long enough to understand why she asked. "I can state that tonight I found no disorder of reason, no intoxication, and no inability to make decisions." "Please do." "I will. Someone may say otherwise, then. My note will say what I observed, not what anyone prefers." Her shoulders lowered, slightly. When the examination ended, Dr. Hale recommended rest, warmth, and no forced questioning. He warned that memory might return in fragments or not at all. "Should I try to make it return?" she asked. "Not by frightening yourself." "That is not an answer. Then this is, follow what comes naturally. Stop when pain rises. A memory forced is not always a memory trusted." He left the note with Lady Agatha and departed. Alistair entered only after the physician had gone. "Would you like food now?" Lady Agatha asked. "Yes." "And what shall we call you?" The woman looked toward the window. Beyond the glass, the northern road vanished into darkness. "Not Marianne," she said suddenly. The name surprised them all, including her. Alistair did not react too quickly. "Why not?" "I do not know." She pressed 2 fingers against her temple. "It came when you asked." "Then it may be yours," Lady Agatha said gently. "Or it may belong to someone I failed." The woman looked at the chipped sundial in her hand. "I cannot wear a name merely because it arrived first." "Then choose one for tonight," Lady Agatha said. "Something temporary." The woman traced the engraving with her thumb. "North." "Miss North?" "Yes." "Very well," Lady Agatha said. "Miss North, your room is ready." The guest chamber overlooked the western gardens. A lamp burned beside the bed. Fresh clothing had been left across a chair, plain enough not to overwhelm her. Lady Agatha handed her a brass key. "This locks from inside." Miss North tested it once. "Who has another?" "Mrs. Fairmont, for emergencies." No one else. Alistair remained by the threshold. He had not crossed into the room, Miss North noticed. "Will you search for the carriage?" "Only if you ask me to. You already sent the rider." "To my aunt, not after the carriage." "Then yes." "Search. For what?" She considered carefully. "A private carriage. One damaged recently. It crossed loose boards. It changed horses too soon. It may have turned north before leaving me, then gone south after." "Anything else?" She opened her palm. The broken brass fragment lay beside the sundial. Mud still covered most of its lettering. "This may belong to it." Alistair did not take the piece. "May I have it cleaned?" "Here, in this room." "Agreed." Lady Agatha called for warm water and a soft cloth. While they waited, Miss North saw a folded county map on a writing desk. She crossed to it without invitation and opened it. Her finger followed the road from Wexford Abbey toward Winchester, then stopped at a bend 3 miles east. "This is wrong." Alistair came closer, but did not lean over her shoulder. "The map?" "The curve." "How?" "The road descends before the bend, not after." This map is 20 years old. Then the road was changed. She found a pencil and corrected the line with a single confident stroke. Her hand continued north, toward Ellingford land. There she drew a black gate beside a narrow private road. The pencil stopped. "Do you know that place?" Alistair asked. Miss North stared at the mark. "No, you drew it. My hand did." A knock sounded at the outer door. Mrs. Fairmont entered with the cleaned brass fragment and a folded message. "The innkeeper from the South Road sent this, Your Grace." A gentleman was there before dusk, asking whether anyone had seen a confused woman alone. Alistair unfolded the note. "Did the innkeeper describe him?" Lady Agatha asked. "Only one detail." He looked at Miss North. The man carried a black riding crop marked with a silver stag. The pencil slipped from her fingers, her eyes fixed on the black gate she had drawn. "He is not looking for me," she whispered. "He is looking for the story he lost." By breakfast, the black gate had become the first thing in Miss North's mind, and the one thing she feared most to understand. She had slept in intervals, waking whenever the Abbey clock struck, then counting the silence between each bell as though distance might be hidden inside it. Lady Agatha found her in the morning room before 8, dressed in the plain blue gown left for her and standing over the County Road book. Alistair had placed on the table. He had not entered yet. He had sent the book with a note asking permission to join her once she was ready. Miss North had read the note twice before telling the maid to admit him. Alistair came in carrying a second map and stopped on the far side of the table. "Did you sleep?" "Enough to know the Abbey clock loses nearly half a minute between the 6th and 7th stroke." Lady Agatha lifted one brow. "It has done so for years. Then no one should trust it for distance." Alistair set the older road book beside her. "This one was copied before the northern road was altered. You may find the original bend." Miss North opened it. The paper smelled faintly of dust and leather. Her fingers moved across the page with immediate confidence, pausing at the road east of Winchester, then tracing the private lane toward Ellingford land. In the margin, beside 3 small church symbols, someone had written 2 words in dark brown ink: "Wrong bells." Miss North leaned closer. The handwriting was narrow and forward slanting. "Have you seen this before?" Alistair asked. "No." "Would you copy it?" She looked at him. "Why?" "Because your hand may know what your memory does not." Lady Agatha placed a fresh sheet of paper beside the book. Miss North took the pen. She copied the words once. "Wrong bells." The letters matched so closely that even the pressure marks appeared the same. Her breath caught. She wrote them again, faster. Then her hand continued without instruction. "Marianne Ellingford." The name appeared beneath the copied phrase. Ink gathered at the final letter because she had stopped breathing. Lady Agatha did not exclaim. Alistair did not reach for the page. Miss North stared at the name as though another woman had entered the room and taken her seat. "Marianne," Lady Agatha said softly. Miss North shook her head. "Do not call me that yet." "Of course, my hand wrote it." "Yes," Alistair said. "That is not the same as knowing it." "No." She touched the first letter without smearing the ink. A sound came back to her. Rain against glass. A man's voice behind a closed door. "You will miss the bath, coach, if you continue this nonsense." Then a flash of red sealing wax and wet gravel. She pulled her hand away. "Going somewhere? Bath?" Alistair asked. "Perhaps." "Do you remember why?" "No." The disappointment came sharp enough to feel like anger. She had been given a name without the life attached to it. "Find every public notice for Marianne Ellingford," she said. Alistair turned toward the bell pull, then stopped. "May I?" She understood what he was asking. He would not summon his secretary without her consent. Yes. Within half an hour, his solicitor arrived with newspapers and county notices from the previous 6 weeks. Miss North sat between Lady Agatha and the window, reading each item herself. There were estate announcements, harvest reports, a delayed hunt, a marriage settlement, and finally a brief notice in a London paper. Miss Marianne Ellingford has withdrawn from society owing to a private indisposition. During her period of rest, family matters will be managed by her uncle, Sir Rowland Ellingford. The wording was smooth, respectable, nearly tender. "Uncle," Miss North said. The word produced no affection. "Sir Rowland," Alistair repeated, "a baronet with land adjoining the Ellingford estate. He published this before I was found, likely before you were abandoned." She read the sentence again. Private indisposition. Lady Agatha's expression cooled. A useful phrase. It invites pity while preventing questions. It makes absence sound voluntary. Miss North looked at Alistair. "If I am Marianne Ellingford, someone prepared society to accept that I would disappear." "Yes, do not announce that you have found me. I had no intention of doing so without your permission. Do not send men to Ellingford House openly." "Agreed. And no one is to use this name outside this room." Alistair glanced at the page. "What shall I call you?" "Miss North." "Until you choose otherwise." "Yes," the solicitor cleared his throat. "Your Grace, there is another matter. A clerk from Crowther and Sons is presently in Winchester. He is arranging delivery of a repaired travelling carriage to a family near Romsey. He may be able to identify the brass fragment." Miss North looked toward the small locked box beside Lady Agatha's chair. "Can he come here?" "This afternoon," the solicitor said. "He need not be told where the piece was found. Tell him only that it concerns damaged private carriage work," Miss North said, "and he examines it in this room." Alistair nodded. "Exactly so." The clerk arrived after luncheon, a thin, careful man named Mr. Bell, with measuring calipers and a leather folder of maker's marks. He bowed to Lady Agatha and Alistair, then waited until Miss North unlocked the box herself. The cleaned brass fragment revealed part of a name, Crow. Beneath it was a number cut almost through the break. Mr. Bell turned it beneath the window light. Crowther and Sons, Bath, rear maker's plate from a private travelling carriage. Miss North's fingers tightened around the key. "Can you identify which carriage? Possibly. From the number." He opened his folder and compared the partial digits. "Yes, an Ellingford carriage, dark blue body, black trim, built 6 years ago." Alistair's gaze moved to Miss North, but he said nothing. "Was it recently repaired?" she asked. 2 days after the date in this newspaper notice." Mr. Bell indicated the paper on the table. The left wheel casing was damaged. The rear plate was missing. The carriage body also bore a scrape along the same side. "Who ordered the repair?" Mr. Bell checked his papers. The authorization came under Lady Verena Strathmore's name. The room seemed to narrow. Miss North saw orange blossom before she smelled it. White gloves, a silver blade catching light, a woman's hand pulling the edge of her cloak tight while another voice said, "No one will know which road you took." She stood so abruptly that the chair moved behind her. Alistair took 1 step forward, then stopped. "What did you remember?" "A woman." Her voice sounded far away. "She cut the monogram from my cloak." "Lady Verena?" "I did not see her face." "Then what connects her?" "Orange blossom." Mr. Bell looked confused. Miss North turned toward him. "Was Lady Verena present when the carriage was delivered for repair?" "No, miss. Her steward sent the order, but the packing paper carried Strathmore scent. Their London house uses orange blossom sachets against damp. He lifted one folded sheet from his folder. The fragrance was faint but unmistakable. Miss North did not touch it. You said the carriage was repaired 2 days after I disappeared. I said after the date of the notice. The notice was prepared to make my absence acceptable. She looked at the road book, at wrong bells, and then at the brass plate. The carriage was damaged on the journey. Lady Verena knew. Sir Rowland controlled the estate notice. Alistair's expression hardened. They may be acting together, or one is protecting the other. What do you wish done? Miss North looked at the name she had written. Marianne Ellingford. It no longer felt entirely foreign. It felt dangerous. Invite them. Lady Agatha turned sharply. Here? Yes, it gives them warning, Alistair said. It also gives me a room they do not control. And if they try to claim you, then they must do it in front of witnesses. She folded the newspaper and placed it beside the brass fragment. Tell Sir Rowland that Wexford Abbey has received a woman who may concern him. Do not give him my name. Alistair studied her. You expect him to come quickly. A man searching inns with a black stag crop will not wait. The late afternoon light shifted across the table. Miss North looked again at the words in her own hand. Wrong bells. Marianne Ellingford. One was a warning. The other might be a claim. She closed the road book. When he arrives, she said, I will learn which one frightens him more. Sir Rowland Ellingford arrived before noon the next day, which told Miss North more than any letter could have done. A man with nothing to fear would have taken time to ask who had been found. Rowland came with a travelling trunk, 2 servants, and Lady Verena Strathmore. He entered Wexford Abbey as though he expected the house to correct itself around him. Lady Verena followed in a dark green pelisse trimmed with sable. She was beautiful in the polished manner of a woman trained to make composure look effortless. Orange Blossom reached the morning room before she did. Miss North stood beside Lady Agatha, near the fire. Alistair remained several feet away, close enough to intervene and far enough to leave the centre to her. Rowland stopped when he saw her. For one fraction of a second, relief crossed his face. It vanished beneath grave concern. Marianne. The name landed like a hand placed upon her without permission. Miss North did not answer. Rowland took one step forward. Alistair moved only his gaze. You will remain where you are, he said. Rowland looked toward him. Your Grace, she is my niece. She is my guest. She is unwell. Dr. Hale found no disorder of reason. Rowland's mouth tightened. A country physician after one examination cannot know what her family has endured. Miss North spoke before Alistair could. Then tell me what my family endured. Rowland turned toward her with practiced patience. You became distressed over estate matters you did not understand. You rejected a prudent arrangement meant to secure your future. Then you disappeared. What arrangement? A marriage discussion. Lady Verena removed one glove finger by finger. Nothing had been decided. Marianne misunderstood the matter. With whom? Miss North asked. Rowland glanced at Alistair. That is not relevant now. Then why mention it? Because your state of mind matters. My state of mind matters only when it serves your story. Lady Verena stepped closer to the trunk. You were angry that Ellingford and Strathmore had begun sharing financial interests. You believed every discussion concealed an attempt to control you. The phrase was carefully chosen. Financial interests. Not debts, not dependents. Miss North looked at her. And did they? What? Did every discussion conceal an attempt to control me? Verena's composure slipped for an instant. Rowland intervened. Marianne, you left willingly. You packed this trunk yourself. You intended to travel south under an assumed name. He signaled to a servant. The man lifted the lid. Inside lay folded gowns, a velvet purse, a coastal guidebook, a jewel case, and a pair of gloves. Everything had been arranged too neatly. Miss North saw accusation in every object. "What assumed name?" she asked. "You never told me. Yet you know I meant to use one. You spoke of disappearing where no one knew Ellingford." "To whom?" Roland's answer came half a breath late. "To Lady Verena." Miss North turned to her. "Did I?" Verena held her gaze. "You did." "When?" "The night before you left." "Where?" "At Ellingford House." "Which room?" "The blue drawing room." Miss North felt nothing. No room, no carpet, no window, only orange blossom and a blade against wool. "What was I wearing?" Verena's eyes sharpened. "A grey evening gown." "What jewellery?" "Your mother's pearls." "What did I say before I left the room?" "You said you would not be managed." Miss North looked toward Lady Agatha. "That sounds plausible." Roland exhaled as though patience had become burdensome. "This performance is unnecessary. The trunk proves enough. Then let us examine it." She walked to the table. No one stopped her. She lifted the first gown, blue silk, expensive, barely worn. She held it against herself. The shoulders were too narrow. The waistline sat too high. "This does not fit me." Verena's voice remained smooth. "You lost weight. Weight does not shorten a bodice by 2 inches. Miss North turned the gown and studied the seams, nor moved the shoulder point inward. She picked up a second dress, the same proportions. These were fitted for another woman. Roland gave a humorless smile. "You claim memory loss and yet speak with certainty about gowns." "I do not need memory to measure cloth." Lady Agatha's mouth almost softened. Miss North examined the trunk itself. The leather straps were darker than the lid and barely creased. "These straps are new." "They were replaced before your journey," Roland said. "By whom?" "A saddler." "Name him." Roland's gaze hardened. "You are not conducting an inquiry. You invited evidence into the room." She lifted the coastal guidebook. "Which route did I intend to take?" "Portsmouth, by way of Farnham." Miss North opened the guidebook. Several pages had been folded. None concerned Farnham. The marked route ran through Guildford and south toward Chichester. "This book disagrees with you. You changed your plans repeatedly. Then it proves nothing except that someone placed it here." Roland's patience disappeared. "Enough. You are coming home." Miss North closed the guidebook. "No." The word was quiet, but it altered the room. Roland stared at her as though refusal were a language he had not expected her to retain. "You are not in a condition to decide. Dr. Hale says otherwise." "Dr. Hale does not know you. Neither do I. That does not make you my owner." Alistair's posture changed. A restrained readiness that Roland noticed. He lowered his voice. "Marianne, I understand you are frightened. I understand Wexford has made you feel protected. But society will not be kind to a woman living under the roof of an unmarried duke. Lady Agatha is my hostess. People will not care. You invited them not to care when you published my private indisposition." Verena's eyes flickered. Roland looked toward the newspaper on the side table. "That notice was intended to spare you shame. Before or after I vanished?" He did not answer. Miss North returned to the gown. Inside one sleeve, near the lower seam, a faint chalk mark formed 2 slanted lines beneath a small circle. Verena saw it at the same moment. Her gloved hand tightened. "What is this?" Miss North asked. "A dressmaker's notation," Lady Agatha said. "A fitting mark. Whose? It may be traced." Verena stepped forward too quickly. "Many London modistes use similar marks." "Then you will not object to one examining it." This is absurd. Is it? Miss North lifted the sleeve toward the light. Orange blossom drifted from Verena's glove. The room vanished. For one sharp instant, Miss North saw black wool pulled tight across her lap. A silver blade slipped under the embroidered edge of her cloak. Verena's voice, low and impatient, said, "No one will know which road you took." Miss North dropped the sleeve. Alistair moved one step. "Miss North?" She raised a hand. He stopped. The choice steadied her. "You cut my cloak," she said. Verena went pale. Roland laughed once. "A scent and a torn garment are not memory." "No, they are questions." Miss North looked at Verena. "Why did you authorize repairs to the Ellingford carriage?" "Because my steward handled several transport accounts connected to our families." "Connected by what?" Verena's gaze shifted toward Roland. "Investment. Using whose money?" Silence followed. Roland moved toward Miss North. "This has gone far enough." Alistair stepped between them without touching either man. "It will go exactly as far as she chooses. You interfere in matters you do not understand. Then enlighten us." Roland's expression sharpened. "Your Grace, Strathmore and Ellingford were preparing an alliance beneficial to both houses. Marianne became suspicious of ordinary financial arrangements. She resented Lady Verena's influence. She threatened scandal. Miss North heard the hidden shape at last. Money, marriage, reputation. "And was the alliance meant to include Wexford?" she asked. Verena lifted her chin. "My father, the Marquess of Strathmore, believed our families compatible. Did Alistair agree?" His Grace had not refused consideration. Alistair's voice turned cold. "I had not been asked." Verena's face changed. Not heartbreak. Calculation exposed too soon. Miss North looked from her to Roland. "So, I objected to financial arrangements between Ellingford and Strathmore, while Strathmore expected security through Wexford." Roland's restraint cracked. "You objected to everything. You imagined theft where there were accounts, coercion where there was guidance, insult where there was concern. And now you bring me gowns that do not fit, a guidebook that contradicts your route, and a trunk with new straps." She placed the sleeve carefully on the table. "You may know my history. That does not make your version of it mine." Roland's face hardened into something less civilized than concern. "If you refuse to return, I will appeal to the county trustees. I will produce medical correspondence. I will establish that you left voluntarily and are being encouraged in delusion." "Produce everything," Miss North said, "in public." Verena turned toward the door. Roland followed, then stopped when Miss North spoke again. "What happened at the Black Gate?" His hand tightened around the black riding crop marked with a silver stag. He did not turn. The silence lasted only a second, but it was enough. "There is no Black Gate," he said. Then he left. Miss North looked at Alistair. He lied too quickly. Yes, she touched the chalk mark inside Verena's sleeve, and she feared this more than the carriage. Outside, wheels struck the gravel. Miss North listened until they faded. "They came to take me home," she said. "No," Alistair replied. "They came to make sure you still believed home belonged to them." The message from the coaching inn arrived before breakfast, folded around a scrap of paper bearing a crescent-shaped hole. The innkeeper had found the scrap beneath the edge of an old ledger after Sir Roland's visit. He did not know what it meant. Miss North did. Or rather, something inside her did. She stood at the breakfast table with the paper in one hand, and the road book open beneath the other. The crescent matched a mark beside one of the notes written in her own hand. Not words this time, only a small symbol drawn next to 3 church towers and a line that curved south, then turned back north. Alistair read the innkeeper's message over her shoulder without coming close enough to crowd her. He says a man offered £10 for the ledger. The man with the black stag crop. The innkeeper did not see him clearly, but the description fits. Lady Agatha set down her cup. £10 is a remarkable sum for an old book of horse changes. Then the book contains something worth more than £10, Miss North said. Alistair looked toward the window. Rain pressed softly against the glass. The road will be poor. It was poor when they left me. That is not an argument for travelling injured. No, it is an argument for going before the ledger disappears. He held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. We leave in an hour. Lady Agatha will come. So will my solicitor's clerk. Miss North noticed the order of his answer. He did not tell her she could not go. He made the journey safer. That distinction had begun to matter too much. By 10, the carriage reached the coaching inn 2 miles east of Winchester. The building stood at a junction where the main road bent south and a narrower lane climbed north between hedges. Mail coaches had scarred the yard into dark ruts. Bells hung over the booking office, each used to signal arrivals, departures, and changing teams. Miss North felt the sound before one rang. Her body tightened. Alistair saw it. Do you want to remain in the carriage? No. Do you want the bells silenced while we are here? No. She looked toward the yard. I need to hear which one is wrong. The innkeeper, Mr. Hales, led them into a private room beside the stable office. His wife remained with Lady Agatha, while the solicitor's clerk took notes. The ledger lay on the table, heavy and worn, its pages browned at the edges. Mr. Hales opened it to the date before Alistair found Miss North. There, he said. Ellingford Carriage, 11:20 at night. 1 horse changed, southbound. Miss North bent over the entry. Beside the time was the crescent mark. What does this mean? Not ours, Mr. Hales said. We use a square cut on receipts from this yard. Could it belong to a turnpike trust? The clerk asked. Possibly. Each gate keeps its own habits. Miss North traced the line without touching the ink. 1 horse changed. That is what the ostler wrote. A private travelling carriage would normally change more than one after a long stage. If continuing at speed, yes. Then they wanted the appearance of a change without the time of one. Mr. Hales shifted uneasily. The ostler may remember more. He sent for the man, an older groom with a stooped shoulder and a face roughened by years of weather. The ostler removed his cap when he saw Alistair, then looked at Miss North with uncertainty. Did you see the lady inside the carriage? She asked. Not properly, miss. Did you hear her? Once. What did she say? He frowned, pulling at the edge of his cap. She asked how long until the next church bell. Miss North's pulse quickened. Exact words. How long until the next bell? That's what she said. And what did you answer? A quarter hour, perhaps less. Which church? St. Matthew's, South Road. Did she sound frightened? No. He glanced at Rowland's entry. She sounded angry. Did anyone answer her? A gentleman said the hour didn't matter. Did you see him? Only his boots when the door opened. And the driver? Not one I knew. Alistair spoke for the first time. Did the carriage leave south? The ostler hesitated. I thought so. Thought? Miss North asked. I was in the rear stable when it left. I heard wheels on the yard stones, then the south gate chain. Could the carriage have turned in the road afterward? It could. Could it have taken the northern lane if the driver doubled back beyond the bend? The crescent mark seemed to darken on the page. Miss North looked at the 3 bell towers in her road book. They created a sound for witnesses. Lady Agatha leaned closer. What do you mean? A horse changed. a bell asked about, a Southgate chain. Each detail suggests a southern journey, but none proves where the carriage went after the bend, Alistair said. Exactly. Mr. Hales added another detail. A gentleman had come the previous day and offered £10 for the ledger, claiming it contained a private family error. He carried a black crop with a silver stag. Miss North closed the book. Sir Rowland did not come to correct the entry. He came to remove it, or to keep anyone from noticing the crescent, the clerk said. Mr. Hales agreed to let Alistair take the ledger in exchange for a signed receipt and a copy kept at the inn. Miss North insisted the transfer be recorded openly. No secret removal, she said. Sir Rowland must not be able to claim the page was altered after it left here. Alistair's expression held quiet approval. You think ahead. I think like someone whose absence has already been written for her. The words cost more than she expected. Later, while Lady Agatha reviewed the copy with Mr. Hales, Miss North stood in the private parlour near the window. The bells above the yard rang twice as a mail coach arrived. She counted the interval between the sound and the visible movement of the horses, then stopped. Alistair entered carrying 2 cups. He placed one on the table within her reach. You did not put it in my hand. You did not ask me to. You remember everything I forbid. Not everything. He looked toward the yard. I forget that most doors are designed for men who assume they may enter. She almost smiled, then the fear returned. The woman in the carriage asked about the bell. Yes. She was angry, not afraid. That is what the ostler remembers. What if I went willingly? Alistair did not answer too quickly. She was grateful for that. What if I chose the carriage, chose the route, chose to leave Ellingford? Then you chose a journey. And if I chose the wrong people, that does not make what followed your consent. She turned toward him. You cannot know what followed. No. Then how can you say that? Because choosing to travel with someone is not choosing to be deceived, injured, stripped of identification, and left beside a road. His voice remained calm. Trust is not permission for harm. Miss North looked down at her gloved hands. Perhaps I trusted them. Perhaps you are not going to tell me I would never have been foolish. No. Why not? Because innocence does not require perfection. Something inside her loosened, not relief. Something more difficult. Permission to remain worthy, even if her forgotten self had made a mistake. The bells rang again. She did not flinch. Alistair stood close enough that she could have reached him, but he did not close the distance. Miss North did. Only by a few inches. She touched his hand once, her fingers resting across his knuckles. He became very still. Thank you, she said. For what? For not turning me into a better woman than I may have been. His thumb moved slightly beneath her fingers, but he did not take hold. I am beginning to suspect the woman you were had very little patience for being improved by others. She let go before the moment became something she could not name. A knock interrupted them. Mr. Hales entered with a messenger holding a cream envelope sealed in dark red wax. For the lady, the messenger said. Miss North broke the seal. Sir Rowland invited selected county families to witness the formal return of Marianne Ellingford's recovered possessions at the Winchester coaching yard 2 days hence. Shortly before the noon coach departed, the language described reconciliation, concern, and correction of an unfortunate misunderstanding. Beneath the formal notice, one line had been added in a different hand. Bring the Duke, if you need him to tell you who you are. Alistair read it over her shoulder. His expression cooled. They want an audience. They want the first public story. You do not have to give them one. Miss North folded the paper. Outside, a turnpike collector crossed the yard. A metal punch hung from his belt, its jaws ending in a crescent. He saw her looking and covered it with his hand. "No," she said, "but I intend to take theirs away." Dr. Oswald Mercer arrived at Wexford Abbey shortly after noon and recognized Miss North before the butler finished announcing him. The physician stopped beneath the morning-room arch, with one glove still in his hand. Colour left his face. Marianne. The name came from him without calculation. Miss North felt the room narrow around that single word. Lady Agatha rose from the sofa. Alistair remained beside the window, motionless except for the change in his eyes. "You know me," Miss North said. Mercer looked as though denial had presented itself and failed. "Yes, how well. I attended you after a riding fall in June. I had met you twice before that." "Then why did you not come when the notice said I had withdrawn from society?" He entered at last, but only far enough to close the door behind him. "Sir Rowland said you required seclusion, and you accepted that at first. What changed?" Mercer looked toward Alistair. "I heard yesterday that a woman found near Wexford might be Miss Ellingford." "That was not my question." He brought his attention back to her. Shame had already begun to undermine his professional calm. "I doubted Sir Rowland's explanation before you disappeared." "Why?" "Because he asked me to write something I could not honestly write." Lady Agatha indicated a chair. "You should sit, Doctor." "I would rather stand." "So would she," Lady Agatha replied. "Yet she has been made to stand alone often enough." Mercer sat. Miss North remained by the table. The road book, the crescent-marked paper, and Dr. Hale's written opinion lay before her. "What did Sir Rowland ask you to write?" "That you were excitable, emotionally unreliable, prone to suspicions about the Ellingford accounts." "Were those statements true?" "You were distressed. That is not the same thing." "No." "Were my suspicions irrational?" He hesitated. Alistair spoke quietly from the window. "Answer her." Mercer's jaw tightened at the authority in the Duke's voice, but he did not look away from Miss North. "I did not examine the accounts. I had no basis to call your suspicions irrational." "Did you ever find me incapable of making decisions?" "No." "Did you ever believe me habitually disordered?" "No." "Did you certify me as such?" "No." I refused. A pulse beat visibly at Mercer's temple. "But I wrote a private letter stating that you suffered nervous agitation after your fall. Sir Rowland said it was needed to postpone a family arrangement until you recovered." "A marriage arrangement?" "He did not say. You gave him language that could make concern sound like incapacity." Mercer lowered his gaze. "Yes, and when I disappeared, he told me you had chosen to travel privately. Did you believe him?" "Not entirely. Yet you remained silent, yes." The answer was almost a whisper. Miss North felt anger rise, but it was not the hot anger Sir Rowland inspired. This was colder. Mercer had not abandoned her by the roadside. He had done something more ordinary. He had noticed a wrongness, preserved his position, and allowed another man to shape the record. "Silence was useful to him," she said. "I understand that now. You understood it then. You only hoped the cost would fall on someone else." Mercer flinched. Lady Agatha did not rescue him. Alistair did not soften the room. "Will you correct the record publicly?" Miss North asked. "Where?" "At the Winchester coaching yard tomorrow." "Before whom?" "The people Sir Rowland has invited to hear his accusation." Mercer looked toward the road book. "A public statement may destroy my standing." "Your standing has been protected by mine being destroyed. I have patients who depend on me." "Then tell the truth carefully. State only what you know." that I had no history of chronic disorder, that I remained capable of reason, that Sir Rowland sought words suggesting otherwise. Mercer pressed his gloves between both hands. He will say Wexford compelled me, then say the Duke did not ask you. She looked at Alistair. Did you? No. Lady Agatha? No. I asked you. Mercer drew a breath. I will consider it. Disappointment struck harder than refusal would have. You considered silence once. She moved to the door and opened it. Do not take too long deciding whether your conscience may inconvenience you. Mercer stood. Marianne, I am sorry. Do not call me that as though recognition repairs what you failed to do. He bowed and left. The door closed behind him. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Alistair crossed to the table, but he stopped before entering the space beside her. He will come. You cannot know that. No. His correction was immediate. I believe he will. Because he confessed. Because he looked relieved when you demanded something of him. Miss North folded Dr. Hale's note and placed it beside Mercer's unfinished accountability. Relief is not courage. No. Do not defend him. I am not. She looked at him. You nearly did. Then I stopped. That mattered more than she wanted it to. Later, Lady Agatha had the false trunk brought to her private sitting room. Only the three of them were present when Miss North lifted the blue silk gown again. She turned the sleeve beneath the window light. The chalk mark remained faint but legible, 2 slanted lines beneath a circle. Lady Agatha had sent a discreet inquiry to the London modiste named in the gown's inner binding. A clerk travelling to Winchester had agreed to inspect the mark openly at the coaching yard. He must not see the gown privately beforehand, Miss North said. He will examine it in front of witnesses. And the trunk remains sealed until then, Lady Agatha added. Miss North nodded. No one must be able to say we altered it. Alistair stood near the mantel. Rowland may try to remove you before the clerk speaks. He may try. He may produce correspondence describing you as unstable. Mercer's testimony can answer that, if he finds enough courage. And if he does not, Dr. Hale's note shows my condition now. Rowland will argue that present clarity does not prove past stability. Miss North looked at him. You have already planned what to say. Several possibilities. Tell me the most dangerous one. Alistair's mouth tightened. I could publicly acknowledge you as Marianne Ellingford and declare you under my personal protection. Rowland would not risk challenging me before witnesses. The room seemed to cool. You would decide my name for me. I would prevent him from taking you by placing me under another man's authority. My protection is not ownership. The crowd will not hear the distinction. Lady Agatha remained silent. This belonged to them. Alistair stepped away from the mantel. If Rowland reaches for you, I will stop him. Stop his hand. Yes. If he orders servants to put me in a carriage, stop them. Yes. If he says I am Marianne Ellingford and must obey him, let me answer. And if the room turns against you before you can, then stand beside me while it does. The restraint in his face gave way to fear. Not fear for himself. Fear of failing to act while harm approached. A title can end danger quickly, he said. A title can also end my voice quickly. I know. Do you? She moved closer. At the inn you told me trust was not permission for harm. Protection is not permission to define me. He absorbed the words without protest. What do you want me to promise? Do not name me before I do. Even if Rowland uses your hesitation against you, especially then. Alistair looked at the closed trunk, then at the road book, then back at her. I promise. His answer came cleanly, but something remained beneath it. a conviction that circumstances might force him to choose safety over obedience. Miss North heard it in the pause before the words, and feared it because she understood the impulse. You do not believe you can keep that promise. I intend to. That is not the same thing. No, he did not lie to make her feel secure. The honesty unsettled her more than reassurance would have. Lady Agatha rose. Then tomorrow must be arranged so that intention is enough. She listed the protections with brisk precision. Her own presence, the modiste's clerk, the solicitor's clerk, Mr. Hales with a copy of the ledger, Dr. Hale's written note, an independent observer from the Turnpike trustees. Every item reduced the chance that Alistair would believe only his title could hold the room. By late afternoon, they travelled to Winchester to inspect the coaching yard before the public gathering. The scheduled noon coach would draw passengers, porters, and selected county families. Roland had invited under the pretense of reconciliation. Miss North stepped down beside Lady Agatha. Alistair remained on the opposite side of the carriage until she nodded for him to join them. Near the booking office, the turnpike collector from the previous day spoke with a servant wearing Strathmore colours. The crescent punch hung openly from his belt. He noticed Miss North's gaze and covered the tool with his coat. Then he looked toward the striped awning where Sir Roland's servants were already placing the false trunk. "He knows why I am here," she said. Alistair followed her line of sight. "Shall I have him questioned?" "Not yet." "Why?" "Because tomorrow he will believe the crowd protects him." She looked at the trunk, the punch, and the space Roland had arranged as his stage. "I want to see who he looks toward when the first lie fails." By 11 o'clock, the Winchester coaching yard had filled with enough witnesses to make truth difficult. The noon coach had not yet arrived, but passengers already crowded beneath the awnings. Porters carried trunks across the cobbles, and selected county families stood in small groups near the booking office under the pretense of observing a reconciliation. Sir Roland had chosen the hour well. Noise would hide hesitation. Movement would scatter attention. Respectability would do the rest. Miss North saw the false trunk beneath the striped awning, its lid open and its contents arranged so carefully that the scene looked less like the return of possessions than the exhibition of a crime. The coastal guidebook lay on top. The jewel case had been opened where sunlight could catch the emeralds. Lady Verena stood beside it in dark green, her orange blossom scent faint beneath the stable air. Sir Roland waited near the turnpike collector with the crescent punch. When Lady Agatha's carriage stopped, Alistair descended first, but did not offer his hand. He looked at Miss North through the open door. "What do you need?" "Room." He stepped back. Lady Agatha came down beside her. Miss North followed without assistance, though the yard tilted for one brief moment beneath the sound of bells. Alistair did not move closer until she nodded. Even then, he remained 2 steps behind. Roland watched the distance between them and smiled as though he had already found a use for it. "Marianne," he called. Conversations quieted. "I am relieved you have come to end this distressing misunderstanding." Miss North stopped several feet from the awning. "You invited an audience." "I invited witnesses." "Then they should witness questions as well as answers." A few heads turned. Roland's expression did not change. "Of course, we have nothing to conceal." Lady Verena lifted the jewel case. "These were found among your belongings, your mother's emeralds." Miss North did not reach for them. "How were they identified?" "Sir Roland recognized them." "Is there an inventory?" Verena's mouth tightened. Must every family possession be reduced to paper? only the ones presented as evidence of theft. A murmur moved through the nearest group. One woman in a plum bonnet leaned closer to her companion. Roland raised the coastal guidebook. You planned to travel south under an assumed name. You took jewels, packed clothing, and left after rejecting a marriage arrangement. No one forced you. Which assumed name? You never disclosed it. Which route? Portsmouth by way of Farnham. Miss North looked at the marked pages of the guidebook. The book still disagrees with you. You changed your intentions repeatedly. Then the book proves nothing. Roland sighed with polished patience. This is exactly what concerned us. Every fact becomes another suspicion. Miss North felt the trap close around the word concerned. Then let us examine the fact you arranged most visibly. She stepped beneath the awning and lifted the blue silk gown. Roland glanced toward Verena. The movement was slight. Miss North saw it. This gown does not fit me. You lost weight, Verena said. Not in the shoulders. Miss North held the bodice against herself. The seams fall nearly 2 inches too narrow. The waist sits too high. This was made for a shorter woman. It could have been altered. It was not. She turned the sleeve inside out, exposing the chalk mark. Lady Agatha signaled toward the edge of the crowd. A thin young man in a modest brown coat stepped forward and bowed. You are from Madame Bellamy's establishment? Miss North asked. Yes, miss. I am her senior clerk. Verena went still. Do you recognize this mark? Miss North held the sleeve toward him. He examined it without touching the fabric. I do. Whose fitting notation is it? The clerk swallowed and glanced at Lady Verena. It was used for Lady Verena Strathmore's autumn wardrobe. Silence spread beneath the awning. Verena recovered first. The gown may have been given to Marianne later. Was it altered for another wearer? Miss North asked. No, miss, the clerk said. The original seams remain. The woman in the plum bonnet whispered something sharp enough to draw a few startled looks. Roland stepped between the gown and the crowd. A misplaced dress does not alter the journey. The turnpike records prove the carriage traveled south. He gestured to the collector. The man raised 3 tickets mounted on a card. Each bore a crescent-shaped hole. Issued at 3 separate gates, Roland said, all southbound. Miss North took the stable ledger from Lady Agatha's maid. 3 separate gates under 3 separate local trusts. Correct, and all used the same punch? The collector answered before Roland could. For that week. Why? Temporary equipment. Issued by whom? The trust office. Which trust office? There are several. Name one. His gaze flicked toward Roland, only for an instant. It was enough. Miss North opened the ledger. The same crescent appears beside the coaching inn entry, though this yard uses a square mark. Why would an inn clerk use a turnpike punch from 3 different trusts? A copying error, Roland said. Then why is the same tool hanging from his belt today? Every eye moved to the collector. His hand covered the punch too late. The plum-bonneted woman spoke loud enough to be heard. How very curious. The collector's face reddened. Miss North stepped closer, though her pulse beat hard beneath her ribs. Did you mark these tickets after the journey? No. Did Sir Roland's agent provide them? No. Did someone pay you? No. The answers came too quickly. Roland's voice sharpened. This questioning is improper. Then let him answer without looking at you. A few people turned toward Roland now. Not many. Enough. The collector's breathing changed. I was told it concerned unpaid tolls. The admission came low. By whom? Miss North asked. I didn't know his name. What did he carry? The man looked toward the black riding crop in Roland's hand. A mail horn sounded from beyond the gate. Horses entered the yard in a rush of harness bells and shouted warnings. Porters scattered. The crowd shifted backward. For several seconds, bodies, trunks, and coach panels broke every line of sight. When the mail coach rolled past, the collector was gone. Alistair spoke to one of his outriders without raising his voice. The man mounted and disappeared through the side arch. Roland seized the confusion. This spectacle has become dangerous. Marianne is unwell, suggestible, and being encouraged to shame her own family. He moved toward her. "You are coming home." Miss North stood her ground. "No, you do not understand what these people will say. You invited them. Because private reason failed. Your private reason was a false trunk." His hand lifted toward her arm. Alistair stepped between them. The yard quieted again, but the silence had changed. It now belonged to rank. Roland drew himself up. "Your Grace, this is a family matter. It ceased to be private when you placed it beneath an awning. She is my niece. She has refused you." Verena turned toward the watching families. "Has she, or has she been persuaded that defiance will secure a more powerful protector?" The implication moved through the yard faster than the evidence had. The plum-bonneted woman, who had called the punch curious only moments ago, now whispered that no unmarried woman stayed beneath a duke's roof without ambition. Another said perhaps the entire roadside episode had been arranged. Miss North watched their attention leave the gown, the crescent marks, and the vanished collector. It shifted toward Alistair, toward romance, toward a story that required no arithmetic and no courage. Roland saw the change. "Marianne, come with me now, and I will still protect what remains of your reputation." She opened her mouth to answer. Alistair spoke first. "She is unquestionably Miss Marianne Ellingford, and she is under my personal protection." The words struck the yard like a gavel. No servant moved. No coachman approached her. Roland stopped. So did every whisper. Then the whispers returned in another form. A duke had claimed her. That was the story now. Not the gown, not the false tickets, not the collector's fear. Miss North turned toward Alistair. Regret had already entered his face, but regret came after the taking. "You promised," she said. He lowered his voice. "He was going to remove you, then stop his hand. I stopped the room by giving it my name before I did." Verena smiled faintly. How touching. The yard leaned toward the cruelty. Miss North looked at the assembled witnesses. The gowns belonged to Lady Verena. The ticket marks were duplicated. Remember that after you finished discussing the Duke. No one answered. She placed the sleeve back inside the trunk and walked toward the main arch. Lady Agatha followed at once. Alistair came after them, only when Roland moved, as though to block the way. Miss North refused Roland's carriage. She refused Alistair's arm. She reached Lady Agatha's coach and turned before stepping inside. Alistair stopped several feet away. Miss North. The name sounded like an attempt to give back what he had taken. "You rescued my body from the road," she said. "Today you tried to rescue my name from me." Miss North returned to Wexford Abbey only long enough to collect what she had chosen for herself. The grey gown, the county road book, Dr. Hale's written opinion, the copied ledger entry, the chipped sundial. Nothing else felt safe to keep. Lady Agatha supervised the packing without turning the act into departure theatre. No servants gathered. No carriage waited beneath the front steps until Miss North had finished. Alistair remained in the morning room, where the false quiet of the Abbey made every clock sound louder than it should. He rose when she entered. She carried the leather portfolio herself. Lady Agatha has leased a house in Winchester, she said. I will stay there with her. His face tightened, though his voice did not. You are leaving because of me. I am leaving because I need one place where no man has declared who I am before I decide it. I broke my promise. Yes, he did not defend himself. The absence of defense almost made the room harder to endure. Miss North placed the portfolio on the table between them. You believed Roland would remove me. I did. You believed the crowd would obey your title faster than it obeyed my refusal. Yes, and you were right. Alistair looked at her. That does not make what I did right. She had prepared herself for explanations, for strategy, for the polished justification of a man accustomed to being praised when power worked quickly. His answer left her with nowhere easy to direct her anger. Do not mistake confession for repair, she said. I do not. Your words stopped Roland. They did. They also stopped everyone from seeing what I had proved. He lowered his gaze for one moment. I saw it happen. Afterward, yes. She opened the portfolio and removed the copied statement from the Modesties clerk, the stable ledger page, and Dr. Hale's note. Before you spoke, they had begun to doubt the trunk. They had begun to doubt the tickets. After you spoke, they wanted only to know whether I had trapped a duke. Alistair's expression hardened, not at her, but at himself. Verena prepared that turn. She did not create the opening. You did. I know. Do you? Miss North stepped closer to the table. Your title made my body safer and my voice smaller. The sentence struck him more deeply than accusation would have. He stood very still. Tell me what repair requires. She studied him. A public correction. I will issue one today, not a retraction. Why not? Because if you simply withdraw your declaration, society will say you discovered I was false, or that I displeased you, or that I demanded marriage and failed. His mouth tightened. Then the correction must be exact. Yes, she counted the terms. You will state that I had already disproved ownership of the trunk. You will state that the Modesties clerk identified Lady Verena's fitting mark. You will state that I exposed duplicate crescent marks before you spoke. You will say Lady Agatha is my hostess. You will say no one has authority to remove me against my will. And your identity? You will say it remains a matter for evidence, not your preference. Pain crossed his face, but he did not resist. I will write it as you instruct. I will read it before it is sent. Of course. Every document concerning me comes with Lady Agatha. Alistair crossed to a locked writing desk and removed the full leather file. He placed it before her. It contained the newspaper notice, Crowther's carriage record, Dr. Hale's opinion, copies of the ledger, the modest inquiry, the road maps, and correspondence from the solicitor. These are yours. Miss North touched the cover. You could keep them and say I must remain for my own safety. I could. You are not. No. Why? Because protection purchased through dependence is another form of captivity. The words were quiet. They did not ask forgiveness. That made them harder to dismiss. Miss North looked at him and remembered the roadside, his greatcoat laid on the milestone instead of around her shoulders. The unlocked carriage door, the space he gave her. Then she remembered the coaching yard. Both men were real, the one who respected her fear and the one who had let his own fear overrule her. You understood that once, she said. I understood it when the danger was yours to measure. I failed when it became mine. That is the truth, yes. He came no closer. There is something else I should say. Do not. I was not going to ask anything of you. Affection is still an argument if you offer it now. He stopped. You think I would use feeling to excuse what I did. I think the crowd already did. They stopped asking whether Roland lied because they preferred to believe a duke cared for me. Alistair's jaw tightened. And if I do? Her heart moved painfully, but she held his gaze. Then prove it by allowing the evidence to stand without romance covering it. Silence followed. At last, he nodded. I will remain useful without standing in front of you. That is what I require. Lady Agatha entered, carrying a folded note. Her expression was cold enough to alter the room. Verena has already begun. Miss North opened the paper. A friend in Winchester had copied the rumour spreading through drawing rooms and shops. The Duke had discovered that his mysterious guest deceived him. Marianne Ellingford had staged her roadside distress to secure his attention. When she demanded marriage, he dismissed her. A second version claimed Alistair had hidden her because she was already compromised. Efficienced, he said. Prepared, Miss North replied. She knew what your declaration would become before you made it. I can deny it publicly. No, you would let it spread. I will not answer one false romance with another. She looked at the maps. Verena wants me defending my reputation instead of questioning the route. Lady Agatha unfolded another message. Sir Roland has called a meeting of the local turnpike trustees in 3 days. He intends to validate the tickets. Miss North sat and drew the ledger copy toward her. The 2 recorded times lay beside the crescent marks, 11:20, 11:38. She placed the older road map next to the newer one and measured the distance between the named gates with a ribbon. Alistair remained across the room until she looked up. Come here. He approached the table across from me. He obeyed. She marked the first gate, then the second. How far? Approximately 12 miles. Including the descent and 2 bridges? Yes. Could a private carriage travel it in 18 minutes? At night? Yes. No. With 1 horse changed instead of a full team? Certainly not. Lady Agatha leaned over the map. Then one of the times is false. Or both, Miss North said. She traced the road with her finger. But Roland needs the times to be true. The bell question at the inn fixes the first. The ticket at the second fixes the next. Alistair examined the gradient marks. Even at dangerous speed, the journey would require far longer. How long? Perhaps 40 minutes in excellent conditions. More on an October road. Miss North's pulse quickened. This was not memory. No one could call it delusion. They chose details that sounded precise, because precision feels like truth. She took up a pencil and wrote the 2 times on separate cards, but they forgot distance. Lady Agatha's expression sharpened. What will you do? Make the trustees calculate it themselves. Alistair looked at her. You will need an independent survey. Yes, a carriage clock. Yes, the gate ledgers, and someone neutral to measure the road. I can arrange all of that. Miss North met his eyes, not as a favor, as access for a woman challenging the truth of travel records. No promise of outcome, none. He waited. The restraint was visible now, not effortless but chosen. Where do you want me at the meeting? He asked. Beside me. His gaze held hers. Not in front, she added. I understand. You did not yesterday. No. He accepted the wound without reaching to close it. Lady Agatha gathered the papers into order. Outside, a carriage rolled down the Abbey, drive toward Winchester, carrying Alistair's written correction to the same families who had heard the scandal. Miss North watched it disappear, then returned to the ribbon stretched across the map. 12 miles, 18 minutes. A road could be hidden by darkness, fear, and social rank. It could not be made shorter by a lie. Sir Roland wants the trustees to make his story official, she said. Then we will arrive before they finish believing it. The first gatekeeper denied everything until Miss North placed the 2 time cards on his desk. 11:20, 11:38. He looked at them once, then toward the narrow toll window as though the road outside might offer an escape. It did not. The morning was clear, the traffic light and the wooden barrier stood raised for Alistair's carriage under the eye of 3 witnesses. Lady Agatha remained beside Miss North. Mr. Pritchard, the surveyor, waited with his field book. A solicitor's clerk had already recorded the condition of the ledger before anyone spoke. Alistair stood near the horses, exactly where Miss North had asked him to stand. Present. Silent. You entered this time, Miss North said. The gatekeeper rubbed his thumb against the desk. It was in the account. Before Sir Rowland came here? I don't remember. Then remember the order of events. Did he show you the time? Or did you show it to him? The man looked toward Alistair. The Duke gave him nothing. No threat. No rescue. Miss North waited. He showed it to me, the gatekeeper said at last. Who? Sir Rowland's agent. Name him. I never knew it. Describe him: dark coat, black crop, silver stag on the handle. The solicitor's clerk wrote without looking up. Miss North opened the toll book to the relevant page. The crescent mark sat beside the southbound entry, too dark and too clean compared with the older ink around it. Was this mark already here? No. Lady Agatha's expression hardened. Who added it? I did. With your own punch? Miss North asked. The man shook his head. Ours makes a small cross. He brought the crescent tool with him. Why did you use it? He said there had been a mistake in the toll accounts. Said the carriage passed after the clerk changed shifts and needed the proper mark. Did he pay you? The gatekeeper looked down. 2 guineas. Did you understand the mark would be used to prove a woman travelled this road? No, miss. Did you ask why a private agent carried a punch from another trust? No. Why not? The answer took longer. Because he had money and Sir Rowland's name. Miss North felt the truth of that settle heavily. Rank, money, certainty. The same materials used to build every version of her disappearance. Will you repeat this before the trustees? She asked. The gatekeeper's face tightened. I could lose my place. You may. Then why should I help you? Because losing a place is not the same as helping someone lose her name. The man closed his eyes briefly. I'll speak, Mr. Pritchard measured the road from the gate marker while the solicitor's clerk copied the relevant page. Miss North insisted the original ledger remain where it was until the trustees ordered otherwise. No secret removal, no evidence carried away under ducal authority. When they resumed the journey, Lady Agatha sat beside her in the carriage. Alistair rode outside. He had not questioned the gatekeeper, though one sentence from him would have ended the denial sooner. Miss North watched him through the glass as the road climbed. He is learning, Lady Agatha said. He is trying. You distinguish the two. I must. That is wise. Miss North looked toward the ribbon laid across the route map on her lap. Wisdom feels less comforting than certainty. Most useful things do. They reached the second gate 43 minutes after leaving the first. The road had been dry. They had made no unnecessary stop. Even so, the descent to narrow bridges and a slow turn behind a farm wagon had consumed more than twice the recorded interval. Mr. Pritchard checked the carriage clock. 43 minutes and 12 seconds. And in darkness? Miss North asked. Longer. With only one horse changed, longer again. Then 18 minutes is impossible. On this road, with that carriage, yes. The second gatekeeper produced the proper local punch. It cut a small star. He denied seeing the Ellingford carriage on the night in question. He did remember a man visiting 2 days later to ask whether a crescent mark might ever have been used there. "What did you tell him?" Miss North asked. "Never." "Did he offer money?" "No. He seemed angry that I couldn't help." "Did he carry a black crop?" "Yes, miss. The same man, the same staged correction. The same assumption that local records could be bent, if enough respectable authority leaned upon them." By noon, they left the turnpike road and followed the private lane Marianne had drawn at Wexford Abbey. The lane narrowed between beech trees, crossed a hollow timber bridge over a drainage channel, then rose sharply before descending toward black iron gates. The sound beneath the carriage wheels changed as they passed over the planks. Miss North gripped the edge of the seat. "Stop." Lady Agatha touched the roof. The carriage halted. Miss North stepped down. The air smelled of wet bark, iron, and leaves pressed into the earth. Her body knew the place before her mind did. The gate stood closed, its left post scarred low near the road. Black paint had been scraped away, exposing pale wood and a strip of metal beneath. Alistair dismounted but did not approach. "Do you want me there?" he asked. Miss North looked at the gatepost. "Yes." He came only as far as her shoulder. "Mr." Pritchard removed the broken brass plate from its padded case and held it near the damaged post without touching either surface. The curve appeared close. The width appeared close. One mounting hole aligned with a dark gouge in the wood. "Is it a match?" Lady Agatha asked. Mr. Pritchard measured twice. "Nearly. I will not certify it here." "Why not?" "The fragment is incomplete, and I need the repair measurements from Crowther's records. At Guildhall, with both before the trustees, I can state whether the dimensions correspond." Miss North respected the refusal. Certainty should be earned even when it favored her. She turned toward the road behind them. They came south first. Alistair followed her gaze, to create the inn entry and toll marks. Then they doubled back. She looked at the timber crossing, the slope, the black gate. "I heard the boards. I knew the turn. That is why I wrote wrong bells." The church sequence did not match the road, they claimed. A memory touched her. Not a full scene. A carriage leaning hard to one side. Verena's voice, saying the driver had missed the southern turn. Roland answering that no one would question the tickets. Miss North pressed her palm against the chipped sundial in her pocket. "I challenged them." "Yes," Alistair said. "I must have. You did not need memory to know something was wrong." She looked at him. He had not said she was brave. He had not turned the fragment into proof before the surveyor agreed. He had waited. You could have forced the first gatekeeper to answer. I could have forced him to fear me. That might have been faster. It would have made his testimony mine. The distinction moved through her. You waited to be asked. And if I had not asked you to come here, I would have sent Mr. Pritchard and the clerk with Lady Agatha. Even if you believed I was in danger, I would have told you why. Then I would have let you decide whether my presence reduced the danger or merely changed its shape. The answer carried no performance, only effort. Miss North looked back at the gate. "Thank you." Alistair's expression softened. "I did not know waiting could be an act of loyalty." Neither did I. For one breath, the distance between them felt less like punishment and more like choice. Then hoofbeats sounded from the northern lane. A rider approached, carrying a sealed note from Dr. Mercer. The physician had written only 3 lines. "I remembered why you meant to travel to Bath. You were carrying proof against Sir Roland. I do not know where he hid it." Miss North read the message twice. Alistair did not ask to see it. She handed it to him by choice. "Proof of what?" Lady Agatha asked. Miss North looked through the black gate toward Ellingford Land. The false journey had not been designed merely to explain her absence. It had been designed to discredit whatever she carried if she returned. "He did not fear where I was going," she said. "He feared what would arrive before me." Dr. Mercer arrived at Lady Agatha's, Winchester House, before dusk, carrying an old appointment card, a folded tenant receipt, and the expression of a man who had finally understood that memory was not the only thing that could accuse him. Miss North received him in the front parlour with Lady Agatha beside the fire. Alistair stood near the window, where she had asked him to remain. Mercer placed the papers on the table without sitting. "I knew where you intended to go," he said. "Bath," Miss North replied. "To whom?" "A solicitor named Mr. Harwood." "Why him?" "Because he had no connection to Ellingford, Strathmore, or Wexford." She looked at the appointment card. Her name was written across the top in a hand that was not hers. Beneath it, Mercer had noted the date of her riding fall and a later visit. "What happened at the second appointment?" "You brought this." He unfolded the receipt. The paper was creased at the edges and stained by age, but the figures remained clear. A tenant named Thomas Reed had paid his quarter's rent to the Ellingford estate office. 3 weeks later, a second sum of the same amount had been collected by an agent, claiming the first receipt was invalid. "Why did you keep it?" Miss North asked. Mercer looked toward the fire. "You left it among my correspondence by mistake, and you never returned it." "I intended to." "Before or after I disappeared?" "Before." She held his gaze until the evasion failed. "I was afraid of being connected to the accusation," he admitted. Miss North opened the county road book and compared the receipt date with the small notations in the margin. Beside the tenant's name was a figure repeated twice, then underlined. Her handwriting, not memory. Evidence. "There were others," she said. "Yes. How many?" "You mentioned 6 tenant families. Did you see their receipts?" "No, only this one." "Then speak only to this one." Mercer nodded. "You were certain it was not a clerical mistake." "Why?" "Because the second payments went through a private agent named by Sir Rowland." Miss North studied the number beside Thomas Reed's name. "I had already begun tracing the pattern." "Yes." "Did Sir Rowland know?" "He knew you were asking questions. I told him you had become agitated over the accounts." Alistair's posture changed, but he did not interrupt. Miss North kept her attention on Mercer. "And then he asked you to describe me as excitable." "Yes." "So the medical language came after the financial questions." Mercer looked ashamed. "Yes, not before." "No. The order mattered. Sir Rowland had not discovered instability and become concerned. He had discovered resistance and sought language to discredit it." Miss North turned the appointment card over. On the back, Mercer had written a brief note. "Patient insists she must leave before Thursday post. Carries copies. Fears delay." "Copies of what?" she asked. "Receipts and rent entries." "Where were they?" "In a packet tied with blue thread." A fragment rose from darkness, her own hand pushing papers beneath a cloak, a carriage door open in rain, Verena saying the regular coachman had taken ill. Rowland promising the Bath Road would be safer after dark. Miss North closed her eyes until the image steadied. The driver was changed. Mercer looked startled. "You told me so." "When?" "The night you vanished. You sent for me after striking your head against the carriage frame near the black gate." Lady Agatha leaned forward. "You saw her there, at a lodge off the private lane." "Was she coherent?" Miss North asked. "Yes, distressed but coherent." "What did I say?" "That the bells were wrong, that the route did not match the distance." "You said, 'They're making a road that never happened.'" The words moved through her with the force of recognition. She had not been helpless inside that carriage. She had been watching, counting, resisting the lie as it was built around her. Who was present? Sir Rowland, Lady Verena, the replacement driver. Did you see the packet? Only the blue thread beneath your cloak. Did you see what happened to it? No. Did you see what happened after you left? No. Miss North's voice remained even. Then do not tell me what you assume. Mercer swallowed. I will not. What did Rowland tell you? That he would return you to Ellingford and cancel the Bath journey. And later, near midnight, he sent word that you had chosen to continue south privately. Did you believe him? Not fully. You have said that before. I know. Then say the part that matters. Mercer looked at her. I believed enough to protect myself. Silence settled over the room. Lady Agatha did not look away from him. Alastair remained still. Miss North folded the receipt along its old crease. Will you testify before the trustees? Yes. You will state that I was coherent, that I carried financial evidence, that the medical concern followed my questions about the accounts, and that Sir Rowland knew I intended to reach an independent solicitor. Yes, you will admit your silence. Yes, you may explain fear. You may not call it innocence. Mercer bowed his head. I would not ask to. After he left, Miss North spread the receipt, road book, toll copies, and carriage notes across the table. The pieces no longer resembled separate mysteries. They formed motive. Sir Rowland had intercepted the Bath journey because she carried proof of duplicate rents. The false southbound route gave him a respectable explanation for her absence. The trunk made flight appear planned. Verena's gowns created the appearance of private female preparation. Mercer's letter prepared society to distrust any accusation if she returned. They did not merely want me gone, she said. They wanted anything I said afterward to sound like the confusion of a woman who had fled. Lady Agatha touched the receipt and the packet. Rowland took it, or Verena hid it. Alastair stepped away from the window only when Miss North looked toward him. What do you need? A room large enough to make the trustees travel the route. Guildhall. Can it be secured without turning the meeting into your proceeding? Yes. The Turnpike trustees already use a chamber there. I can request neutral access through the magistrate's clerk. No promise of outcome. None. Miss North took the ribbon used to measure the map and stretched it across the carpet. A rope will represent the road. Wooden blocks for the gates. The coaching inn here. The black gate here. The church towers here. She placed the carriage clock beside the first card, 11:20. Then she set the second card 12 measured feet away. 11:38. Lady Agatha understood first. They will calculate the impossibility themselves. Yes, what of the brass plate? Alastair asked. Mr. Pritchard should compare it with Crowther's repair measurements in the room, not before. And the gatekeepers, both summoned. The first with his admission, the second with the proper star punch. Mercer? He speaks after the route fails. Motive should follow method. Alastair's expression held quiet admiration. You do not want a pile of evidence. I want a road no lie can cross. And where do you want me? The question was careful, personal beneath its practical shape. There. She pointed beside the end of the rope. After I finish, he nodded. I will speak only then. Her heart tightened. Do you want to be there? He asked. She looked at him. He had not assumed. He had not arranged himself into the climax of her story. Yes, she said. I want you there. Something warm passed through his face, restrained but unmistakable. Then I will be there. A knock sounded before either could say more. Lady Agatha's maid entered, carrying a cream note with no crest. Orange blossom rose from the paper. Miss North broke the seal. Withdraw your accusation before the trustee meeting. In return, I will tell you where Sir Rowland hid the missing rent books. Come to Strathmore House tomorrow. Bring no solicitor, Lady Agatha read over her shoulder. A trap? Yes. You intend to go? Yes. Alistair's jaw tightened, but he asked only, What do you need from me? Miss North folded the note. Nothing yet. She looked at the blue thread notation on Mercer's card, then at Verena's scented message. Tomorrow, I need Lady Verena to believe I came for the books. And what will you truly be seeking? Lady Agatha asked. Miss North placed the note beside the false route, the moment she admits why she helped erase the road. Strathmore House stood in a quiet Winchester Square, its pale stone front arranged to suggest calm. Miss North saw the lie before she crossed the threshold. Every curtain had been drawn to the same height. Every servant moved without sound. The house had been prepared for secrecy, not hospitality. Lady Agatha entered beside her despite Verena's instruction to come alone. A magistrate's clerk waited in a hired carriage at the corner, out of sight but near enough to be summoned. Alistair remained farther down the street with two trusted servants. He had objected to nothing once Miss North explained the arrangement. He had only asked, What signal? Lady Agatha carried the answer now in the form of a small brass handbell tucked inside her reticule. Verena received Miss North in a drawing-room, scented faintly with orange blossom. She wore pale blue and no jewelry beyond a single pearl at her throat. The restraint looked calculated, as though she wished to appear less powerful than she was. You brought Lady Agatha. Yes, I asked you not to. You also asked me to withdraw the truth. Miss North glanced toward the adjoining morning room. The connecting door remained open. Lady Agatha took a chair there, close enough to hear and distant enough not to control the conversation. Verena followed Miss North's gaze. You do not trust me. You helped remove my name from my cloak. Then why come? Because fear makes people careless, and your letter smelled of fear. Verena's composure tightened. You always believed cleverness excused cruelty. Do I remember saying that? No. Then perhaps you are speaking to the woman you need me to have been. Verena turned toward the fire. The rent books exist. Where? Not yet. Then we have nothing else to discuss. Miss North turned toward the door. Wait. Verena's voice cracked beneath the command. Miss North stopped. Withdraw my name from tomorrow's accusation, Verena said. State that Sir Rowland used my steward's authority without my knowledge. In return, I will give you the books. You authorized carriage repair. I was told the damage occurred during an ordinary family journey. You placed your gowns in the trunk. Afterward, you ordered the original tickets burned. Verena looked sharply at her. Who told you that? No one. Miss North let the silence work. But your face did. Verena crossed to the window and stared down at the square. You think I chose this because I envied you. Did you? I envied your freedom to refuse. Miss North felt no triumph, only the cold recognition of a truth twisted into excuse. What freedom? You had your own fortune. Your father's settlement gave you influence over Ellingford lands. You could question accounts, dismiss agents, threaten solicitors, and still remain Marianne Ellingford. Verena's hands tightened against the curtain. My father, the Marquess of Strathmore, has mortgaged nearly everything not entailed. My brother has debts in London. Every invitation, every gown, every season depended upon the appearance that Strathmore remained secure, and marriage to Wexford was meant to preserve that appearance. More than appearance. Did Alistair promise you marriage? No. Did he court you? No. Then your family treated his unmarried title as an asset already waiting to be claimed. Verena turned. You speak as though women of our rank choose from endless honourable paths. No, I speak as a woman whose path you erased to protect yours. The words landed between them. Verena's face hardened. Roland said you would be left at an inn. He said the false route would create enough confusion for the account matter to be settled privately. You would return after several days, embarrassed but safe, without my monogram. That was necessary. For what? So no one would connect you to Ellingford before Roland reached you. You mean before anyone else believed me? Verena looked away. You were not supposed to be injured. But I was. The carriage struck the black gate when you tried to force the door. A fragment of sound moved through Miss North. The violent tilt of wheels, loose boards, Roland telling the driver to keep moving. Her own hand against the latch. Did I try to escape? You tried to stop the carriage. Verena's answer came reluctantly. You said the bells were wrong. You accused us of turning north. Because you had. Yes. The admission was almost inaudible. Why continue after I struck my head? Roland said, the physician found, you coherent. Mercer said no such thing to me afterward. Roland told me you would still be taken to the inn. And when he changed that plan, Verena's silence widened. You knew. Not until later. How much later? After midnight. And you said nothing. What could I have done? Told the truth. Verena laughed once bitterly, and destroyed my family for a woman who despised me. I do not remember despising you. You did. Perhaps I had reason. Verena flinched. Miss North stepped closer. You did not need to love me. You needed only to refuse to help erase me. You ask for morality from people who were never given safety. No, I ask accountability from people who purchased safety with someone else's ruin. For several breaths, only the fire moved. Then Verena crossed to the false blue trunk near the far wall. It had been returned from the coaching yard that morning. She knelt and pressed beneath the lining. A narrow wooden panel shifted. Inside lay 2 slim account books, wrapped in oilcloth and tied with blue thread. Miss North's pulse struck hard at the sight. Verena lifted the bundle but did not surrender it. These prove the duplicate rents. Then give them to me. First your word. I will not lie for you. You would condemn me alongside Roland. You chose alongside Roland. I chose survival. So did I. Miss North held out her hand. The difference is that I am not asking another woman to disappear for it. Verena stared at her, then placed the books into her palm. The weight was slight. The meaning was not. He will destroy Strathmore, Verena said. He already used Strathmore. You think Wexford will protect you? This is not about whether Alistair protects me. Everything is about his protection now, only because men like Roland taught the room to hear rank before truth. The drawing-room door opened. Sir Roland entered without announcement, black riding crop in hand. His gaze moved from Miss North to the exposed compartment, then to the books she held. What have you done? Verena rose. What you were too cowardly to do. I chose before you could choose for me again. You chose panic. He advanced toward the trunk. Miss North stepped back once, not from fear, but to keep the books beyond his reach. Stop! Roland ignored her. Lady Agatha appeared in the open doorway and rang the brass bell twice. The sound was small. Its effect was immediate. Footsteps crossed the hall. Alistair entered with 2 servants and the magistrate's clerk behind him. He did not place himself between Miss North and the room. He looked at her first. "Do you need me to intervene?" Roland stopped, startled by the question. Miss North held the books against her ribs. Prevent him from taking these. Alistair moved then, placing himself between Roland and the trunk. "Gladly." Roland's face reddened. "This is theft from a private house." The magistrate's clerk stepped forward. "The recovery has been witnessed." Verena laughed without humour. "The books belong to Ellingford accounts. They were hidden in a trunk used to accuse Marianne." Roland turned on her. "Your family will have nothing when this is finished. We have nearly nothing now, because your father lacked discipline. Because men like you call exploitation prudence and expect women to be grateful for the shelter." His hand lifted, pointing toward her with enough force to make her retreat. Alistair caught his wrist before he crossed the space. No struggle followed, only a quiet warning. "That is far enough." Roland pulled free. "You think rank makes you righteous?" "No," Alistair said. "It makes me difficult to remove while witnesses are present." He glanced toward Miss North, then back at Roland. "Today, that is useful." Roland looked at the oilcloth bundle. "She does not understand those accounts." "Then tomorrow will give you the opportunity to explain them," Miss North said. "Before the trustees, before the magistrate, before the tenants whose names appear inside." For the first time, fear entered Roland's face without disguise. "You will not be permitted to turn a financial meeting into theatre. You already turned my disappearance into one." He left without another word. Verena remained beside the fire, pale and rigid. "What happens to me now?" she asked. Miss North looked at the books. "You testify. And after? Consequences belong to everyone you harmed, not to me alone." Back at Lady Agatha's Winchester house, Alistair wrote the public correction in his own hand. He placed it before Miss North without explanation. It stated that she had exposed the false trunk and duplicate ticket marks before his declaration at the coaching yard. It stated that Lady Agatha was her hostess, that no one had authority to remove her against her will, and that evidence, rather than ducal preference, must determine her identity and claims. One sentence remained. "My concern for her welfare compelled my intervention." Miss North drew a line through it. "Why?" he asked. "Because concern is not the issue. What is authority?" He nodded and removed the sentence. "Anything else? Add that you will attend tomorrow as my witness, not my protector." He wrote the words. Miss North read them once more. "Send it." As the ink dried, a servant entered with news from Guildhall. Sir Roland had arrived early with 2 trustees prepared to certify the southern route before the full examination began. Lady Agatha looked toward the clock. "He means to make the conclusion official before you present the road." Miss North closed the first rent book and rose. "Then he has mistaken being early for being first." The Winchester Guildhall had been arranged to make Sir Roland's conclusion look inevitable. 2 turnpike trustees sat beside the magistrate with the southbound tickets already placed before them. Local landowners filled the benches. Gatekeepers waited near the wall. The innkeeper, the modist's clerk, Dr. Mercer, and several tenants had been given places at the rear. Lady Verena sat apart from everyone, pale and composed only by effort. When Miss North entered with Lady Agatha, conversation thinned. Alistair followed several steps behind and stopped where she had instructed, beside the end of the measured rope carried by Mr. Pritchard's assistant. Sir Roland looked at the coil and smiled. "Must we endure a demonstration?" "Only if you wish the trustees to understand the route they are being asked to certify," Miss North said. The magistrate studied her. "You may proceed." She laid the rope across the Guildhall floor. Wooden blocks marked the coaching inn, the first toll gate, the second toll gate, the black private gate, and the 3 church towers. She placed a carriage clock beside the first block and set it to 11:20. 12 measured feet away, she laid a card reading 11:38. Sir Rowland's tickets claim that the Ellingford carriage passed these gate 18 minutes apart, she said. The measured road between them is 12 miles. One trustee glanced toward Rowland. The times are entered in the books. Then we should test whether the road obeys them. Mr. Pritchard stepped forward with his survey notes. He described the descent, the 2 narrow bridges, the market turn, and the toll delay. Under dry daylight conditions, the journey had required 43 minutes and 12 seconds. At night, in October, with only 1 horse changed at the coaching inn? Miss North asked. Longer, he answered. Could it be completed in 18 minutes? No. Rowland leaned back. A cautious survey party does not travel with the urgency of a private carriage. Then let the gatekeepers speak to the records, Miss North said. The first man approached reluctantly. He admitted that Rowland's agent had supplied the 11:20 time before he checked his book. He admitted receiving 2 guineas. He admitted using a crescent punch that did not belong to his trust. Why did you obey? The magistrate asked. The gatekeeper's face reddened. He carried Sir Rowland's name, sir. The words settled over the room. Miss North looked toward the second gatekeeper. What mark does your trust use? A star, miss. He produced the proper iron punch. Did the Ellingford carriage pass your gate that night? Not that I saw. Then why does Sir Rowland possess a ticket bearing a crescent and your gate's name? The man looked toward the stove-cooper, who stood behind him, because the original was nearly burned. He reached inside his coat and brought out a scorched fragment of card. Its edge was blackened, but the star-shaped hole remained visible. This fell behind the stove after a servant ordered the old stubs destroyed. The magistrate took the fragment. Whose servant? Strathmore colours, sir. Every face turned toward Verena. She remained seated, but her hands tightened in her lap. Rowland spoke before she could. A burned scrap proves only careless record-keeping. Miss North lifted the 3 crescent-punched tickets from his display. 3 trusts, 1 tool, 1 invented road. She then placed the broken brass plate beside Mr. Pritchard's measurements. The Crowther clerk brought forward the repair record for the Ellingford carriage. The dimensions of the missing plate, the mounting holes, and the left side damage matched the scrape at the black gate. Mr. Pritchard aligned the figures before the trustees. The carriage struck that northern gate while turning sharply, he said. The damage is consistent with the repair ordered 2 days later. Under whose authority? Miss North asked. The clerk answered clearly. Lady Verena Strathmore's. Verena rose. Her face had lost its last trace of calculation. I authorized the repair. Rowland turned toward her. On my instruction, because the carriage was Ellingford property. You also instructed the false tickets. She said. You told me Marianne would be left safely at an inn. The benches went still. The magistrate's voice sharpened. Lady Verena, speak with care. I placed my gowns in the trunk. I ordered the original stubs burned. I allowed the carriage to travel south first, then double back by the private lane. She looked at Miss North. I believed she would be frightened and returned within days. I did not know Rowland meant to leave her without identification. Miss North held her gaze. You cut the monogram from my cloak. Verena's eyes lowered. Yes, you knew what that would do. Yes. Rowland struck the table with his palm. This is panic disguised as confession. Then the accounts may calm you, Miss North said. The false trunk was brought forward. A carpenter lifted the lower frame beneath the lining. The oilcloth-wrapped rent books appeared where Verena had said they would. Miss North placed them before the trustees. Names, dates, and duplicate collections filled the pages. One payment entered through the Ellingford estate office. A second payment taken weeks later through Rowland's private agent. Fabrication, Rowland said. By whom? Miss North asked. By you. Before or after I lost my memory? The question stopped him. Doctor. Mercer came forward next. He testified that Miss North had been coherent after the Carriage incident, that she had been carrying evidence for an independent Bath solicitor, and that Sir Rowland knew of her questions about the accounts. He admitted writing language about nervous agitation after Rowland's pressure. He admitted remaining silent when she vanished. Did you ever find her incapable of reason? The magistrate asked. No. Habitually disordered? No. Then why did you permit such an impression? Mercer looked toward Miss North. Because I feared scandal more than I feared what silence might cost her. Rowland seized the word fear. There, a distressed woman, a frightened physician, a resentful rival. None of them can tell you what Marianne herself remembers. He turned toward the trustees. She cannot swear to entering the carriage unwillingly. She cannot swear to the route. She cannot even swear that Marianne Ellingford is the name she accepts. The room held its breath. Miss North looked down at the rope stretched across the floor. Her entire stolen journey lay there in measured sections. She raised her eyes. He is correct that I do not remember every mile. Rowland's mouth curved, but the road does not require my memory to be true. She pointed to the clock. 12 miles do not become 18 minutes because a woman forgets them. 3 local trusts do not become one because a baronet purchases a punch. A carriage does not strike a northern gate while travelling south. A gown does not fit the wrong body by accident. Rent books do not hide themselves beneath false luggage. She took one step toward Rowland. You counted on my missing memory to make every other fact disappear. No one moved. Then a man rose from the rear bench. Thomas Reed, the tenant named on Mercer's receipt, held his cap in both hands. Sir, I paid twice, he said to the magistrate. My wife sold her mother's silver spoon to make the second sum. We were told the first receipt was worthless. He looked at Miss North. You came to our cottage before you left for Bath. You said you would make it right. The words struck deeper than recovered memory. She had not known whether Marianne Ellingford had been brave, foolish, proud, or kind. Now a frightened tenant had answered part of the question. It will be made right, she said. Alistair stepped forward only after she lowered her hand. I have one statement. The magistrate nodded. At the coaching yard, Miss North had already exposed the false trunk and duplicate ticket marks before I spoke. I used my title to declare her identity and protection because I feared she would be removed. He faced the room. In doing so, I made my rank louder than her proof. That was wrong. My regard for her does not determine whether she is believed. The evidence has done that. Rowland gave a bitter laugh. How noble. Alistair looked at him without anger. No, merely overdue. The magistrate ordered the tickets, rent books, repair measurements, and sworn statements secured. Sir Rowland was removed from management of the Ellingford accounts, pending examination into fraudulent rents, unlawful confinement, and conspiracy to conceal Miss North's movements. Verena was required to remain available for further questioning. Mercer's conduct would be reported to the proper medical authorities and county patrons. No sentence was pronounced. None was needed for the room to understand that Rowland's authority had ended. Miss North faced the trustees one last time. You believed a respectable man because his story was orderly. You doubted a woman because her memory was not. That failure belongs to more than one person. Outside Guildhall, the bells began to strike the hour. Alistair came beside her, but did not offer his arm. "Where do you wish to go?" he asked. Miss North looked north through the open square. "First," she said, "back to the milestone." Several weeks passed before Miss North returned to the milestone, and by then the road no longer belonged entirely to fear. Autumn had deepened over Hampshire. The hedges stood dark against the pale fields, and the coaching inn, half a mile away, had opened a new chamber beneath a modest painted sign. No ducal arms appeared above the door. No Ellingford crest claimed the work. Marianne had insisted upon that. The room belonged to its purpose, not to the houses that funded it. Mrs. Hales, the innkeeper's wife, stood at the entrance while local families, tradesmen, 2 tenant couples, and several county ladies gathered for the dedication. The chamber was simple. It held 2 narrow beds, a washstand, a strong inside lock, and a bell connected to the private parlour. A woman stranded on the road could remain there for one night while her onward journey was verified. She would not be required to surrender wages, references, letters, or personal papers in exchange for shelter. The room was maintained through a private settlement and local subscriptions. Mrs. Hales controlled its daily use. Marianne had made certain of that as well. Independent managers now oversaw the Ellingford accounts. Duplicate rents had begun to be credited or returned. Sir Rowland remained without authority over the estate. While the magistrate continued examining the fraudulent collections and the concealment of Marianne's movements, Lady Verena had supplied further testimony. Her cooperation had spared no one the facts of what she had done. Strathmore withdrew her from society before society could pretend it had never welcomed her. Dr. Mercer issued a signed correction and left county practice, while his conduct was considered by the proper medical authorities and the families who had trusted him. Consequences did not restore Marianne's missing hours. They did something more useful. They prevented those hours from remaining property of the people who had taken them. Alistair stood among the witnesses rather than beside the doorway. He had asked where Marianne wanted him. She had said there. When the small gathering quieted, he stepped forward. For one breath, the old instinct moved across his face. He knew how to command attention. He knew how to shape a room before anyone else found words. Then he looked at Marianne and stopped after a single sentence. "Miss Ellingford will explain what this chamber is meant to provide." He yielded the centre. Marianne faced the people gathered along the roadside. Some had attended the coaching yard spectacle. Several had watched her lay the false journey across the Guildhall floor. She recognized the discomfort of those who had believed Rowland because belief had required nothing from them. A woman in danger should not have to prove her worth before she is allowed one safe night, she said. This chamber will not ask whether she is genteel enough, obedient enough, or fortunate enough to deserve shelter. It will ask where she wishes to go next and how that journey may be made safely. She turned toward Mrs. Hales. The room is under Mrs. Hales's authority. No direction from Ellingford or Wexford may overrule her judgment in its daily use. Mrs. Hales looked startled by the public recognition, then stood straighter. "I'll see it kept properly, miss. I know you will." A tenant's wife named Mrs. Reed stepped forward when the dedication ended. She held no silver spoon now. The duplicate payment taken from her family had been returned. "My husband told me what you said at Guildhall," she told Marianne, "that you'd make it right. I wish I had done so sooner. You tried before they stopped you." Mrs. Reed's eyes filled, but her voice remained steady. "You came to our cottage when people above us said the accounts couldn't be questioned. I thought you'd forgotten us." Marianne looked at the woman's worn gloves. "I forgot almost everything." She paused. Not what mattered. Mrs. Reed pressed her hand once, then stepped away. The gesture gave Marianne something memory had not, proof that the woman she had been and the woman she had become were not strangers in every way. Later, after the visitors departed, Lady Agatha accompanied Marianne and Alistair to Wexford Abbey. She led them not to the drawing room, but to the small rooftop observatory above the western wing. The room held a brass telescope, star charts, and wide windows overlooking the road toward Winchester. Lady Agatha settled near the far table with correspondence, close enough for propriety and distant enough for privacy. Alistair stood before Marianne with the chipped sundial in his open palm. "My aunt returned this to me because she believed I should return it to you." Marianne took it. The brass remained scratched. The broken edge had not been polished away. You did not repair it. It was not mine to alter. You did not add another inscription. I considered, "Ask a duke when lost." She looked up. "That would have required throwing it from the roof." My engraver offered the same warning. A smile escaped her before she could prevent it. Alistair's expression softened, but he did not use the moment to move closer. "Marianne, I loved you before I knew whether Marianne Ellingford was your true name." The humor left his voice. "I loved the woman who questioned the distance to my house before entering my carriage. I loved the mind that trusted bells and roads when memory failed. I loved you when your innocence was uncertain, when your fortune was unknown, and when you were angry with me for deserving it." Her fingers closed around the sundial. "Love does not give you the right to direct me. No, it does not make your fear more important than my choice. No, it does not mean I must become Duchess of Wexford because you found me. No." He drew a breath. "That is why I am not asking you to marry me today." The disappointment that touched her was small and revealing. "What are you asking?" "Whether I may court you, openly, properly, without asking gratitude to disguise itself as affection. And if my memory never fully returns, then I will know the woman you choose to become. If I decide to live at Ellingford, I will visit. At Winchester, I will learn the road. At Wexford, I will try not to look unbearably pleased." She studied him. The man before her still possessed enough rank to alter households, accounts, and county opinion. What mattered was that he had learned rank could not build intimacy by force. "You may court me," she said. Relief moved through his face with such unguarded warmth that she nearly laughed. "I should warn you," he said. "I intend to be persistent." "You may be persistent." She placed the sundial in her pocket. "You may not be presumptuous. A narrow road. You are improving with roads." Over the following months, Alistair did not ask again. He visited Ellingford only when invited. He accompanied Marianne to the coaching chamber without claiming credit for it. He sent no gifts too valuable to refuse and never treated patience as a performance awaiting reward. Marianne lived between Winchester and Ellingford House. The old rooms returned to her unevenly. A stair rail felt familiar. A west corridor clock did not. She stopped treating silence as failure. One spring morning, she entered Lady Agatha's sitting room, carrying a folded document prepared by her own solicitor. Alistair rose from the window seat. You look serious. I am. She placed the paper before him. This is a proposed marriage settlement. He stared at it, then at her. Marianne. Ellingford interests remain separately managed. The lodging chamber continues under Mrs. Hales. Any future decisions concerning my property require my consent. Agreed. You have not read it. I will read every line. I already agree to the principles. There is one more. Name it. Marianne held his gaze. I will not marry you because you found me. I will not marry you because you defended me. I will marry you because after the danger ended, you continued to stand beside me when no audience remained. Alistair went very still. Are you certain? Yes. Then may I ask properly? You may. He did, she answered without hesitation. Months later, they returned to the milestone on their first anniversary. Dusk had fallen too far for the sundial to cast a useful shadow. Marianne opened it anyway. The engraved words remained clear. Find your own north. Does it tell you anything? Alistair asked. She closed the lid. Nothing tonight. Troubling? Not at all. She slipped it into her pocket and turned toward the northern road. She no longer needed perfect memory, a measured shadow, or a duke's declaration to choose her direction. Alistair fell into step beside her, not ahead, not behind, beside her.